So watching my wife get angry after watching this movie was far more entertaining than watching this movie itself. So in Before I Fall, Zoey Deutch plays a fairly standard high school mean girl. She goes through her day ignoring her little sister, being rude to her parents, riding in a car with her obnoxious friends, having a douchebag boyfriend, ignoring another guy that's in her life. They go to a party, some shenanigans involving bullying and other stuff go down, and then things get crazy when the day repeats itself. And then through the repetitions of the day, she starts to examine herself, examine her life, and thinks, is this life so perfect after all? And ask all the questions that all people start to do as they grow up. And this is our movie. Now, to state the obvious, I graduated high school about the year that the characters in the story would have been born, in which case I'm clearly not the target demographic for this movie. I decided to go through it on kind of a date night. I like time loop movies. My wife likes YA type stories. I don't typically dislike this type of story, but to say that I did not like this movie at all, and neither did she. So let's put this in context. This movie very much so, obviously, is similar to Groundhog Day, a movie that I, of course, grew up with, a beloved comedy that I very much so love. In that story, a douchebag newsweather guy has to report on a story he doesn't want to. He's rude to everyone around him, and the day repeats and shenanigans ensue. Similarly, here we have a story about people that kind of treats other people terribly, day repeats, and they start to learn lessons throughout the process. The difference, though, is that Bill Murray is charismatic and funny, and even in his douchebaggery, is someone that was on equal playing field with the people that he's being rude to. He's like in the hierarchy of life, he's right there with them. And so you watch him and you just kind of feel bad for him that he's kind of this pathetic. In this story, however, you're watching 4 high school bullies be awful. They are the epitome of everything horrible about high school girls. Not that all high school girls are horrible, but these are 4 horrible high school girls that treat people terribly, that it has dire consequences, and you're watching it in cringe mode. It's not like watching Bill Murray be funny douchebag Bill Murray. This is full on like the 4 worst girls from your high school treating people horribly for like the first 60 minutes of the 60 minutes of the movie before some of the redemptive story arcs and you start to see how things are unfolding. And for me, it was just pretty tedious to watch through. So I worked with teenagers for about 10 years, up until this last year, really. And everything that these characters do in the story, even the good characters, everything they do is stuff that I desperately tried to get high schoolers to not do for years of my life. So being entertained by watching high schoolers make terrible decisions and treat each other horribly, well, it's just not entertainment for me. So let's talk about the good. On the good side, Zoey Deutch, the lead actress, I think that's how you say her name, is the daughter of Leah Thompson. She gives a very good performance here. She gives some layers and depths and some likability to a character that's not likable at all. She just has an ability to smile and you go, oh, I kind of like her a little bit. And then she says and does things and you're like, she's awful. And then she smiles again and you kind of like her. But throughout the movie, she really does have kind of a depth to her and different things that she goes through. And she emotes all of those things really well. The next thing that's pretty good about this movie is that the characters actually have layers and depth to them. There's reasons behind the way they are. And if they're awful, it doesn't try to necessarily justify all of that, but it gives reasons for why they are the way they are. And
go, get set, go, 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 go.
Interesting. But so there's all of them have something to them beyond just simply being a cardboard character in this story. There's even kind of like the boy that has a crush on her, that it's only goes one direction, and they give it more depth than the blatant trope that it actually is. And also, while I said this is very similar to Groundhog Day, which it is for about the first 2/3, the story starts to kind of come together and elements start to tie together, and it doesn't play out like Groundhog's Day at all. It has more depth elements to it and goes in different directions, and there's some clever and wit in the twists and turns that I did not see coming, and so there's some nice little elements to the story. With all that said, let's talk about the bad. And the central problem to this story is that the lead characters, and even our lead character in it, are so unlikable, that are such reprehensible human beings, that seeing them on a redemptive arc and seeing their days change, and I don't want to see a redemption story for bullies. That's just not very interesting to me. And especially the way it kind of plays out with a time loop story, it doesn't work in this context, because the nature of it is people are bullied by them and trying to make things right and make amends and all the types of things that you kind of want to see happen to a bully type person. You can't do in a story that resets every day, and that's the nature of this story and the arcs and where things go. And so it's very unsatisfying, and it's a character exploration that doesn't feel deserved. And the depths to which they do things to kind of pull at your heartstrings and manipulate you emotionally to make you feel something, all of those things that they do just kind of act as a enormous debt that our lead characters are in, because they've done such terrible things that had such terrible consequences that you just can't get out of the hole in a time loop movie. You can't really get to satisfying conclusion in a time loop movie where you hate these characters so much. And there's elements to it of justice and what's right and what's wrong. And there's no satisfaction if you care about justice. If you're a person watching a story being like, oh, this is screwed up. High schoolers, stop doing this stuff to each other. Please, please stop. Chloe, please don't be like these girls, okay?
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel much better now. So you're going to be a nice person? You're not going to be mean to people? Good. All right. There's one good thing that came out of this movie. I have a nice video to show her when she turns 13 and just be like, don't be like these people. But all in all, just kind of watching it was a very unpleasant experience kind of for me. My wife went on a 90-minute tirade against the movie when it came to a close, somewhat just because of where the plot went, how it concluded, and the elements to it. And on the plus side, I guess, to that, it did spark good discussion. The conversation wasn't, this was a badly written movie. The conversation wasn't, that movie made absolutely no sense. The conversation was all about the morality, the consequences, the choices, the directions, where they went with it. And to its credit, I think I will actually award it one more point than I was going to otherwise. I was thinking about slapping my label the worst on it, but it's a well-made story that did not appeal to me, about characters I did not like, a redemption story I was not interested in seeing. And so all in all, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. A well-made story that I didn't want to see told. But to be honest, I am not the target audience for this, and it's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. One of my YouTube buddies, Tyler Tompkins, gave it a very positive review, thinks it's one of the most underrated movies and undernoticed movies of the year. He was a very big fan of it, and so you might be the target audience. I'm significantly older than him. I am significantly older than the target audience. In fact, I'm just about the dad age of the target audience for this movie. So keep all that in mind, but as a movie fan, as a time loop fan, I did not care for this movie. In fact, if you like time loop movies, I'm going to put a recommendation in here. If you're a person that looks more like me than the people in this movie, check out this movie on Netflix called Ark. It's like a movie about people it's like a home invasion story that's a time loop story that's post-apocalyptic. Real short, concise. It has Robbie Amell, the cousin of the guy from Arrow. So if you're like me and kind of like that type of story, you like time loop stories, check that one out. This one, not so much. However, if you do look like the human beings that are in this story, it might appeal to you significantly more than it appealed to me. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't want to just talk about movies that I don't like. I'd like to talk with you about why you did like those movies. So join me in the comment section. Kind of give me your thoughts on it, your take. Did you like it? Was it just me that I'm an adult, I'm an old man looking down on this and being like, teenagers, stop doing this? And that's all I can see as I watch a movie like this. Can you just enjoy the ride, relate to a little bit more? Tell me what you think in the comments section. I would love to hear your opinion. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. Sometimes I talk about the movie news. I do 3 or 4 movie reviews a week. Sometimes I go live. I've got this really cool thing I'm working on right now. I'm working on a pilot episode of a movie trivia show that I recorded with Tyler Tompkins, Durbin, Cody Leach, Jeff Vito's movie blog, a couple different guys. That'll be up pretty shortly. But if you're new to my channel, like you said, consider subscribing, because I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you.
Dada.
Oh, yeah?
Durbins are very mean.
Durbins are very mean. Sorry, buddy. I didn't know that she felt that way about you, but With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah.